Hey everybody, it's Alex at Motoroso, and in this video we're going to take a look at the huge selection of Icon Vehicle Dynamics lift kits for the 2022 and up Toyota Tundra. Now we love Icon Vehicle Dynamics because they are one of the leading manufacturers of high-performance suspension offerings for trucks in the aftermarket, right up there with names like Fox and King, but they also manufacture their own upper control arms, trailing arms, and all the control arms that you need to round out a full suspension lift kit for your truck. Now the downside to that is that they make so many different options. There's actually 63 options for this Tundra. They make so many different options that our customers often have a tough time navigating and deciding which kit is going to be right for them. So we're hoping that this video is going to be helpful for you in choosing which one's going to be right. And if it is helpful, please consider becoming one of our customers by shopping with us. It supports what we do here. We're going to put links in the description of this video, linking you over to our website at Motoroso.com, where you can also reach us on live chat or call us toll free at 833-MOTOROSO. We love helping our customers with their projects. Now, as I said, 63 different variations, and they make them in 0 to 3 inch lift kits and 6 inch lift kits. There is so much to cover in just the 0 to 3 inch lift kits. We're actually just going to eliminate some of them, and we're only going to cover those. We're not going to cover the 6 inch lift kits in this video. If we do make a separate video about that, we'll put a link to that right here. But for this video, we're just going to focus on that more popular 0 to 3 inch system. Now, before we dive into the individual stages, what I want to talk about is the different components I may be talking about through the video that might come in each of these kits. Now, starting with, obviously, shocks. And that's going to be a huge range. You've got everything from their EXP series, which is simply a shock that you swap a coil spring onto, on up to their coilover shocks, their remote reservoir coilover shocks, their CDC shocks that have compression damping, right on up to their top of the line and extremely advanced and sophisticated electronically damped CDEV shocks, which we are just blown away by. Those are a really cool offering. Now, all of the shocks that come in every single Icon Vehicle Dynamics kit are fully rebuildable. You wouldn't expect anything less from a motorsports grade level product like Icon Vehicle Dynamics. So naturally, you're going to have wear depending on how hard and kind of harsh are the conditions that you're using these products in. If they start to leak or weep, it can get tired and need to be rebuilt. You can send them into Icon Vehicle Dynamics and have them fully serviced and rebuilt. And then you're going to have all your hard parts as well, like most importantly, your control arms, but of course, including things like brackets. And all these kits are going to come with a diff drop and a sway bar drop. And you're going to need those on every single kit. It comes in every single kit. So I'm not going to talk about it after this, but just know that you're going to need those on every single application, with the exception of if you have a TRD off-road or a TRD Pro, you just don't need to use that diff drop, but that's no big deal. Now, the most important among your control arms is going to be that front upper control arm. You're going to see that in every single kit on the higher end. And that's going to be available in either their tubular steel or their billet adjustable aluminum, which is what you see in front of me here. Now, the tubular steel control arm still features their Delta Joint Pro. It's going to have that high articulation that's going to allow for extra travel in the wheel, and it's going to correct for the geometry of that increased ride height, but it is a non-adjustable control arm. It'll get the job done and save you a few bucks. Or you can get the kits that include their fully adjustable and stunning billet aluminum upper control arm. Definitely looks really, really good on top of being a higher performing product that is fully adjustable, so you can get your alignment just right. And again, features that Delta Joint Pro, so you get that maximum articulation and wheel travel. And of course, also a bit lighter than tubular steel. Your more complete kits, you're also going to see the rear lower trailing arm or lower link, as well as the upper link. And that's going to help correct for the geometry in the rear of the truck. It's not as critical or important as that front upper control arm, but it is an important upgrade if you want maximum performance and maximum travel. The bushings in those control arms are going to operate smoother and allow for the additional travel that the OEM are going to limit. It's also going to correct for the geometry changes in the back from that increased ride height as well. And those are also going to be available in tubular steel, or the rear adjustable billet aluminum to match the front billet aluminum if you're going that route. Again, lighter weight, and of course has that bling factor. Then in the most robust kits you're going to find on this list, you're going to have an adjustable track bar as well, and that connects the differential to the frame and essentially centers the axle on the vehicle. It's that last 5% of alignment that you're looking to make adjustment on. You don't necessarily have to have it, but it is a nice final fine-tuning tool that helps that vehicle helps the axle stay centered on the vehicle and helps the vehicle track, in other words, roll just perfectly. So your highest end kits are going to include that track bar as well. Additionally, if your truck comes equipped with the TRD skid plate, you're going to need to put some spacers in to avoid contact with the sway bar after the drops are in. Icon makes a kit, part number 55164, but any half-inch spacers and longer bolts will work. And again, before we dig in, all the kits are going to be referred to in stages. Now, that can be a little confusing because this does not transfer across even their product groups or even the different applications. Here's an example. The Tundra kits are going to go up to stage 14, including their CDEV shocks, but the Bronco kits, for example, go up to stage 8, including their CDEV shocks. So there's not parity on what the stage is for the different kits as an indication of how high-end that kit is, even within the Tundra. Because when we talk about the 3.0 series shock, which is arguably a vastly superior shock for off-road performance, a stage 2 3.0 kit is superior to a stage 10 in the 2.5 shock. So I'm going to detail everything as we go through it. I just wanted you to kind of put that in your head that the stages are really just a way of identifying these kits, not necessarily comparing these kits. Every single one of these kits I'm talking about is going to work on either a non-TRD or a TRD equipped versions of the Tundra. They are all compatible. Later on in the video, I'm going to talk about some TRD versions of the suspension. It does not mean they are limited to the TRD. It just means that they're going to affect the rear ride height of the TRD differently because that TRD comes with slightly different suspension to begin with. And because your TRD Pro or TRD off-road suspension systems are pretty high-end to begin with, you're really only going to see major gains in performance from kind of the upper stages of the Icon vehicle dynamic suspension systems. But just know that every single kit we talk about is going to be compatible no matter which version of the Tundra you have. As I mentioned earlier too, there are 2.0, 2.5, and 3.0 versions of the shocks that come in these kits. The first set of stages we're going to talk about are going to have either 2.0 or 2.5 series versions of the shocks, and then we'll get into that top of the line off-road performance 3.0 series. The first kit in the lineup is going to be the Stage 1 kit, which features their EXP shock. Now this is a kit that is essentially meant to bridge the gap kind of between just doing a strut spring, a strut spacer leveling kit and a full coilover kit, save you a few bucks by actually transferring over your stock top hat and OEM spring, transferring that over to this shock, reassembling it and reinstalling it. Now this means that the shock is definitely non-adjustable from a damping standpoint. It is adjustable from a ride height standpoint, but essentially you have to choose that ride height when you put it together. There's going to be a little spring perch collar that you're going to put a little clip on that's going to hold and keep that spring in place, and you're basically just going to have to choose exactly how much lift you want in the front when you install it. There's no easy adjustments like a spring collar preload adjustment to make ride height changes later on. But again, a big upgrade from a strut spacer kit, save you a few bucks from a coilover kit. You're basically going to be able to lift the front end of your vehicle with this kit up to 2.5 inches. And with this kit, that's going to be limited by the range of the stock upper control arm. That kit also includes their 2.0 VS nitrogen charged monotube rear shock, which again, a rebuildable shock. And it's going to be an upgrade in ride quality and performance from the stock, but nothing really special to write home about. Again, just kind of a better option than just a simple strut spacer lift. The Stage 2 kit features the exact same two shocks, so no changes there, but it does include an upper control arm. So now the upper control arm is going to overcome that limitation of the stock upper control arm, allowing you to actually go to the maximum ride height adjustability on those EXP shocks, allowing you to go up to 3 inches. That new upper control arm is going to enable that additional travel, and they are making this in 2 versions. You can get that with their tubular steel non-adjustable upper control arm, which will totally do the trick, or if you want a little extra bling factor, you can go up to that fully adjustable billet aluminum upper control arm as well. Now moving on up to Stage 3 of this system, you're no longer going to have that EXP shock where you swap over your OEM spring. You're now going to have a fully assembled 2.5 VS full coilover that's going to enable a little bit more suspension travel. Now the problem with the Stage 3 kit is that it does not include an upper control arm. So that stock upper control arm is still going to limit you to 2.5 inches of total ride height in the front, but you will get a touch more actual wheel travel for better off-road performance, the ability to drive over obstacles. And something to note here is that actually just installing a fully assembled McPherson strut is quite a bit easier than having to swap over your spring. Compressing that spring, disassembling your OEM McPherson strut, transferring it over to the other shock. That's actually a pretty involved process, and you do need to have the right equipment. It can be quite dangerous because if that spring lets go, there's a lot of YouTube videos of people getting pretty messed up by that process. So if you want an easier install, this might be the right kit for you if you're not worried about that additional ride height. I should also note that moving forward on this and every coilover shock that comes in all the rest of the kits, an important change here is you're not just going to have to choose the ride height when you assemble the strut like you do on that EXP shock, now you get a finite adjustment. You can actually turn the spring preload collar to squeeze that spring a little bit more and get a little bit more ride height out of these shocks. And that is a very important thing to be able to do, because if you have a little bit more weight added to the front of your Tundra, for example, maybe you upgrade the bumper, add a winch, it's going to cause the suspension to sag a little bit in there. This is going to allow you to correct for that and get the truck sitting exactly where you want it, the ride height you exactly want, versus having to just choose something and toss it in. This is going to apply to every coilover moving up the stages. Now, going up to stage 4 is going to allow you to actually take full advantage of the additional travel and performance of that fully assembled 2.5 VS coilover shock, because they're adding in that upper control arm, which again, those are going to be available in tubular or billet aluminum, and that's going to be 2 separate part numbers. Again, put those in the description of the video. Now, this is also going to allow you to maximize the ride height. You can raise it up to 3.25 inches in the front, giving you more lift and, again, more wheel travel because of the additional stroke of that shock. This is where you're starting to get into some actual increases in real off-road performance. And the rear shock in this stage 4 kit is still that 2.0 VS monotube rear shock. So not a whole ton of changes in the rear. It's really what's happening up front in this kit that matters the most. And again, this is kind of what I would consider the first real suspension upgrade. And this would essentially be the minimum for my truck personally. Stage 5 system is a simple upgrade in the rear. Basically, everything stays the same up front, but in the rear, they're going to go up to their 2.0 remote reservoir shock. Now, the big difference here is that this remote reservoir actually just adds more fluid capacity to the shock. And that extra fluid capacity is really about cooling. As these shocks are working off-road and getting cycled through their travel, they're going to warm up and heat up. So more fluid capacity helps to make sure that you don't get shock fade, where the damping just stops working because everything's overheating. And of course, it all wears out a lot faster if you're doing that. So as I mentioned, stage 4, kind of a minimum if you're doing any off-roading whatsoever, even light off-roading. And then this kit's going to add some more performance in the rear. So stage 4 or 5, really the start of off-road performance. And just like before, 2 part numbers on the stage 5 system. You're choosing either tubular front upper control arms or billet aluminum front upper control arms. Next level up on the stage 6 system is going to keep that same remote reservoir shock in the rear, but now it's going to bump up your front shocks to the remote reservoir 2.5 series coilovers. So just like in the rear, getting more fluid volume is going to be a big deal in the off-road performance on the long sessions that could cause that oil to overheat and get shock fade. Now you're upgrading your front coilovers to get that remote reservoir, but in this case, you're talking about doing that on a 2.5 series shock. That means it has the 2.5 inch shock body, which is much more capacity, especially when you then add that remote reservoir. Now you're getting a lot more cooling, a lot more off-road performance, and you can wheel all day without seeing that suspension fade on you. Just like all the other kits we've talked about already, it also comes with the option of 2 different part numbers, whether you want tubular upper control arms or billet aluminum. Now moving up to the stage 7 kit, which is actually the kit that is sitting in front of me right now, that rear 2.0 shock is going to bump up to be a matching 2.5 remote reservoir shock. So you get that matching performance front and rear out of a 2.5 inch shock body. Again, the increase in fluid volume is going to help resist shock fade in the serious off-roading situations, and then combined with an upper control arm is going to give you that 3.25 inches of front lift height and maximum wheel travel you're going to get out with that replacement upper control arm. There are 2 part numbers in this system, one for the tubular control arm and another for the billet aluminum upper control arm. The stage 8 versions of these kits are going to start introducing some of the rear control arms that I mentioned before. Now, these are in effect an optional upgrade. You don't necessarily need to have it for the truck to perform properly, but there definitely are some advantages. There are going to be some geometry changes in the rear. Anytime you change the lift height of the ride height of the vehicle, you're going to have geometry changes. This is going to correct for that. The axle, instead of coming forward a little bit, if you keep those OEM trailing arms, you're going to be able to adjust for that distance, that length, and it's going to put it back where it needs to be. And because they are adjustable, you can also make changes to that. You can shorten or lengthen the wheelbase using your trailing arm. Now, additionally, this is going to come in either their tubular steel or their billet aluminum. Now, the billet aluminum, of course, is going to be lighter, fully adjustable, and has that bling factor. But the tubular steel, also adjustable, is going to get the job done just fine. There are also performance advantages, though, with that trailing arm. Because of the bushings that are installed in those trailing arms, they're going to have a much more smooth operation and free movement versus your OEM style bushings. They're essentially a rubber bushing that doesn't move or slide. ride limits the movement of that trailing arm. So you can get smoother suspension operation, more responsive suspension in the rear, and you're gonna unlock a little bit of travel because that bushing's not fighting that travel. And realistically, I should probably correct myself because these trailing arms and these upper control arms, they don't feature bushings. They're PTFE lined rod ends. And that's a very different thing than just a rubber bushing. These are made to perform in high performance situations, operate much more smoothly, be much lower maintenance, and not wear out over time. Again, just allowing much smoother suspension operation. Going up to stage 9 of this system is quite a few different changes, okay? So from the stage 8 system, you're actually gonna be losing the trailing arm. That's coming back out of this kit. What's changing on the stage 9 system is that all 4 of the shocks are going from the 2.5 series coilover, remote reservoir coilover, that's non-adjustable on any sort of damping controls, and it's adding their CDC valve on all 4 corners. So now this is giving you compression damping adjustments. You have 10 clicks of ability to set the suspension to either be softer or firmer. This is a massive upgrade for anybody that wants to really tune their suspension to change to the conditions that they're going into. For high-speed desert runs, you're gonna need higher compression damping so that if you hit a large unexpected obstacle, it's not gonna blow straight through your travel. But if you're in some nice, slow rock crawling situations, you can soften it so it's very supple and just moves over the terrain. This is really getting into somebody who's serious about off-roading and tuning their suspension for the different environments that they're gonna be going into. And like the other kits, of course, your option is 2 different part numbers here. You're either going to be getting a tubular steel upper control arm or their billet aluminum upper control arm. Stage 10 is going to build on the performance of stage 9 by adding back in the rear control arms. But this time, it's not just the trailing arm lower link, it also includes the upper link in the rear, which is going to be the full set of control arms you need to correct all of that geometry, including the pinion angle on the rear, which is just going to make sure that the truck can perform as good as possible. And again, those rod ends or those PTFE lined FK rod ends are going to operate much more smoothly, be far less maintenance, and open up travel in the rear to make sure you maximize what you're getting out of those adjustable remote reservoir coilovers now. Now getting into stage 11, there's quite a bit to talk about that's going to change here, and it's now going to introduce 4 different part numbers at stage 11, so try and follow along with me here. The first thing, and very simple, is they're going to add an adjustable track bar. That's the last possible control arm that you could need to get that alignment just perfect. Just having that adjustable track bar is very simple. You can buy that and add that to any one of the kits we've talked about before. It's not terribly expensive. Now first, this is the most important thing that they're doing on this kit, is they're adding in the rear spring. So this is going to be an Icon Vehicle Dynamics tuned triple rate rear spring. Now, this is going to improve your on-road quality because the initial part of the spring is softer and offers a little bit easier droop. And that's going to really smooth out your on-road performance, making a better ride. And on the other end of the spectrum, it's going to offer significant ramp up in an overload protection, essentially helping to prevent major bottom out in serious off-road situations where you might hit it. So in general, an off-road, more off-road oriented spring upgrade. Now this is also going to have the effect on your non-TRD equipped Tundras of raising the rear height up 1/2 of an inch. So just something to know. It's going to bring that rear up a little bit, giving you a little bit more clearance, but also giving it a slightly different look. On a TRD equipped Tundra, that is not going to raise the rear height at all because the TRD equipped Tundra was already at that ride height. So that triple rate rear spring, not going to change anything on a TRD equipped Tundra. Now this is where things start to get a little bit more complex. Like I said, 4 part numbers. They also make a version of the stage 11 that is for TRD, or the TRD version. And what this means is that they're introducing a different triple rate rear spring that's going to raise the rear height on a TRD equipped Tundra 0.75 inches, so 3/4 of an inch lift in the rear of a TRD equipped Tundra. What that means for a non-TRD equipped Tundra is you get 1.25 inches of rear ride height increase, rear lift. And so that might be good for folks that are perhaps knowing that they're going to do like an overland build. They're going to put a bunch of dirt bikes in the back, or they're going to put a rack and a tent and weight in the rear of the truck, and they need that extra spring to support that weight. It's kind of a heavy duty spring option, or you just like the look of it being raked out and riding high in the rear. That is also an option as well. And so you got your two different versions of the spring, basically non-TRD and TRD, that affects both TRD and non-TRD trucks differently. Hope you're following along with that. But then of course you also get to choose whether or not you want billet control arms or tubular control arms. The benefits of those I've talked about extensively throughout this video. 4 part numbers for this stage 11 kit. And just to emphasize, that does include the upper control arms in the front and the rear upper and lower links. Now stage 12 is a fairly significant departure from stage 11, so follow along here. You're going to lose your adjustable track bar, you're going to lose both of your rear suspension links. You're going to of course still have an upper control arm, and so the 2 part numbers here are going to be choosing between a billet control arm or that tubular control arm. But what's really exciting about this kit is they're introducing, this is the first kit you can get on the Tundra that has the CDEV electronically damped suspension. And this is a really special piece of technology that I get very excited about. I have it on my Bronco. I'd love to be putting it on this Tundra. But what this does is actually installs an Icon Intelligent Control Unit computer, which is a 6-axis gyro that sits underneath the hood of the vehicle and then makes real-time adjustment based on what's actually happening with the vehicle. Acceleration, deceleration, corner load. And it measures all those things, and every 40 milliseconds makes real-time damping adjustments on those shocks. So rather than saying, hey, I want to set my suspension at 6 clicks on all corners, setting it there and then just going and enjoying my day and having it be good in most places, but not great here and not great there, in real time, this computer is going to be picking up what's happening in the vehicle and making adjustments on the fly in real time to handle some very advanced stuff. Now, I could talk actually for probably half an hour about the technology in the CDEV system. I made a separate video talking about CDEV for my Bronco. Check that video out right here. All the same technology applies to what's going on here if you want to dive deeper on how CDEV works and what all the major benefits are. Just know that this is one of the most advanced suspension systems that you can put on a Tundra, and the first place you're going to see that in these kits is here at stage 12. At stage 13, if you've got any pattern recognition skills, you could probably guess that you're going to add back in those rear control arms. Yes, you're going to get the lower link and the upper link, and you'll have 2 part numbers here to choose from, whether you want tubular control arms throughout or billet control arms. And this is again going to make sure that that rear suspension can move as smooth and freely as possible due to those upgraded rod ends, and that's going to make sure that you maximize the performance of those incredible CDEV shocks. Then the top of the line stage 14 system that you get with the 2.5 series shocks is going to add back in that adjustable track bar, so you can make sure you get every little bit of control arm adjustment you can, get that alignment just perfect. It's going to add back in that rear spring, that triple rate rear spring. So that means you're going to have 4 part numbers again at stage 14, just like before. The first 2 part numbers that are the non-TRD kits are going to raise the rear height of the non-TRD truck 1/2 inch. But if you have a TRD equipped truck, then that rear height is going to stay exactly the same. Or if you get the TRD version of the kit, it's going to raise the rear height of a non-TRD truck 1.25 inches, and a TRD equipped truck, it's going to raise 0.75 inches. So again, 4 part numbers. The links for everything I've just talked to about up till now is all going to be in the description of this video, and those links are going to take you over to Motoroso.com, where you can shop with us. And if you found this video helpful to date, please do become a customer of ours. That's what supports what we do here. We can also be reached on live chat or call us toll free at 833-MOTOROSO. Now we can move on to talking about the more serious off-road systems that are available in the 3.0 series of Icon Vehicle Dynamics shocks. Now the 3.0 series kits are going to start out at stage 1, but do not think about this as being anything remotely similar to stage 1 in all the kits that we just talked about. These are serious suspension upgrades featuring these 3.0 shocks, and I'm going to get into why that technology is such a big deal. This is going to pick up basically as an upgrade from 9 and 10, stages 9 and 10 in the previous kits. This is a slight departure over to these 3.0 series shocks. Now, what's really big deal here in these shocks is that you're going to a 3-inch shock body. This allows for, number one, a lot more oil, a lot more fluid. It's going to handle the heat better, but you get a much larger piston inside the shock body there. And that piston has a larger surface area, allowing it to control the movement of the truck much more precisely and much more smoothly. Now it also features their multi-stage hydraulic system there. And what that does is it increases the piston surface area around 50% larger than the 2.5 shock in the ride zone. So that's kind of the first 25 to 40% of the travel. You got that larger piston, you can just have a smoother, more controlled ride on the road. But as you get through the travel of that shock, it's gonna bump up the piston size. It picks up more surface area and it goes up to double the size of the 2.5 shock in the last 40% of the travel, essentially acting like an internal bump stop. And what that means is that as you blow through the travel, instead of getting through there on a huge hit and bottoming the shock out, it's gonna get exponentially more damping and really soften that heavy hit. So these 3.0 shocks are really for the serious off-roader. And of course, that means that this is gonna still have that CDC valve that you saw in stages 9 and 10. That CDC valve gives you the 10 levels of compression damping control. Nobody getting into a serious off-road shock is not gonna wanna be able to make adjustments to their damping. So there isn't even a version of the 3.0 shock that comes without damping control. So you're gonna have the control over that damping. And then this kit, the first version of the 3.0 shocks, is gonna be available in 2 part numbers. Again, you guessed it, you're choosing between a tubular upper control arm and that billet aluminum upper control arm. Stage 2 of this system, you guessed it, is gonna introduce the rear links again, both upper and lower, and you're gonna have the ability to choose between full tubular control arms throughout or all billet aluminum. Stage 3 of this system introduces that adjustable track bar. And you guessed it, it brings in that rear triple rate spring that we saw on the other stages in the 2.5 series shocks. And the same applies here. That triple rate rear spring is gonna affect the rear ride height of the non-TRD and TRD trucks just slightly differently. Go back and review the previous 2 times I went through that. I'm not gonna bore you with that again on this section. Stage 4 of these systems is a little bit of a unique one, so make sure you pay attention to this. Okay, this is gonna bump you up to the CDEV electronically damped shocks that I am so excited about. I think it's some of the coolest stuff that's out there. But here's what's unique about it. It's gonna be 3.0 CDEV shocks in the front, but they're gonna pull the rear 2.5 CDEV shocks. So you're gonna have 3.0 shocks in the front and 2.5 CDEV shocks in the rear. It is gonna keep all the same control arms though. You're gonna have either tubular or billet, whichever you choose, and that's gonna be the rear upper and lower links as well as that front upper control arm. Stage 5 is gonna be the system that brings those rear shocks back up to the 3.0 series CDEV shocks. So you have the top of the line dampers all the way around with that amazing electronically damped control, controlled all by that Icon Intelligent Control Unit with that 6-axis gyro. And then stage 6 is the final and top of the line system in this more off-road oriented series. It's gonna bring you back that adjustable track bar, and you guessed it, it's going to reintroduce that rear spring system. So again, there's 4 part numbers on the stage 6, depending on what you wanna do with that rear spring on your TRD or non-TRD. Again, not gonna go through how all those changes work. I covered it earlier in the video. That should just about do it to help you know which of these massive selection choice of Icon Vehicle Dynamics suspension systems is gonna work for you. And if there's any more clarity that you still need on this, please head over to Motoroso.com, reach us on live chat or call us toll free at 833-MOTOROSO. We would love to help you understand more about these kits and which one's gonna be the right thing for you. And if you have found this video helpful, please become a customer of ours by shopping with us over there at Motoroso.com. That's what supports what we do here. Now we're also gonna be making an installation guide video. We'll put a link to that right here, and that'll help you see just how easy it is to install this stage 7 system with that upper control arm being one of the trickier parts of the install. But again, it's all pretty straightforward to install, and we'll walk you through it step by step. We hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.